The wind cut through Cla's skin, swirling around her small body as she moved along the dark, deserted road. Her bare feet barely felt the pain of the cold, rough asphalt. Adrenaline still coursed through her body, the fear of the orphanage fresh in her mind. Anything was better than going back to that place. Hunger rumbled in her stomach, but she ignored it, focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. She had escaped. She had finally done it, after years of enduring constant abuse, the cruel hands of the staff that stripped away her innocence, and the indifferent glances of those who passed by without noticing her suffering. No one had noticed when she slipped away into the darkness. No one would miss her. It didn't matter. She just wanted to get away. With each step, freedom felt more real, yet at the same time, more terrifying. What dangers lurk in the night for a lone girl? Stay with African Legacy Tales for the shocking twist. She didn't know where she was going or what awaited her, but any destination was better than the orphanage. The cold of the night clung to her skin like an icy blanket, making her teeth chatter and her hands tremble. At that moment, all she wanted was to find shelter, somewhere, anywhere, that would protect her from the darkness outside and the ghosts of the past that whispered in her mind. So, after what felt like hours of endless walking, the silhouette of a dilapidated cabin appeared on the horizon. The structure barely stood, with broken windows and a door hanging from a hinge, but to Cla's eyes, it was a refuge. She pushed the door open with difficulty, the creaking deafening in the silence of the night. She entered, and although the place smelled of mold and dust, she curled up in a corner, hugging herself to try to keep warm. The floor was freezing, the air damp, and the silence absolute. However, she couldn't relax. Her body was exhausted, but her mind wouldn't stop spinning. She closed her eyes, and like an unstoppable torrent, the memories of the orphanage flooded back, sleepless nights, an empty stomach, and the blows that made her feel smaller than she already was. She remembered how she would hide in the shadows, hoping the caregivers wouldn't find her, wishing to disappear. Every day was a battle against invisibility. No one saw her. No one heard her. Sometimes, Cla thought maybe it was better to be invisible, that way, they wouldn't notice her when they decided to punish her for something insignificant. The nights when she cried silently, waiting for someone to save her, had become a routine. But no one came, and over time, she stopped waiting. In the midst of those thoughts, a sound broke the silence, a deafening crash, as if the world was breaking apart. Cla jolted upright, her heart pounding. The fear she had felt in the orphanage returned, but this time, it wasn't from the abuse. It was from what she had just heard outside. She cautiously approached the broken window, peeking out. On the road, she saw two cars, one wrecked, its front completely crushed against a tree, while the other quickly vanished into the darkness, fleeing the scene. Cla froze. She didn't know what to do. Her instinct told her not to move, not to leave the cabin, but something inside her pushed her to act. Perhaps it was the same impulse that had driven her to escape that night, a small spark of courage that hadn't yet been extinguished by fear and pain. Her legs trembled as she approached the door. She hesitated for a moment, thinking about what she might find if she stepped outside. What if it was dangerous? What if something terrible had happened? But the fear of the unknown wasn't enough to stop her. She opened the cabin door and stepped into the cold night. The road seemed endless under the dark sky, but the wrecked car stood there, motionless, like a giant shadow in the middle of nowhere. Cla moved slowly, her heart racing. Each step she took brought her closer to a reality she didn't want to face, but something inside her urged her to keep going. When she reached the vehicle, she could see more clearly. The front was completely destroyed, the hood dented, and the windows shattered. Cla stood next to the car for a moment, unable to move, but the sound she heard next pulled her from her paralysis, a cry, soft at first, but growing clearer and more desperate. A baby. The cry of a baby. Her heart raced. That sound pierced the silence of the night, and despite her fear, her body began to move almost on its own. Her steps were shaky, but the need to do something, to not remain still, was stronger than the terror surrounding her. When she got to the car, the windshield was completely shattered, the glass scattered on the ground like fallen stars, and the hood crushed, almost touching the engine. CLA forced herself to look inside the vehicle, the baby's cries still ringing in her ears. And then she saw her. In the driver's seat, a woman, covered in blood, breathed with difficulty. Her face was pale, her hair tangled, and her hands trembled slightly as she tried to move. CLA froze at the sight of her severe injuries. The woman's chest rose and fell slowly, and each breath seemed a titanic effort. "Please," the woman's voice came out as a whisper, hoarse, barely a thread of sound. "My baby, help him." CLA could barely move. Her gaze swept through the car's interior, and she saw him, a baby, small and fragile, cried uncontrollably from a seat beside the woman. He was hurt, his skin reddened, and his cries reflected a fear and pain that CLA knew all too well. The hospital, the woman swallowed hard, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and desperation. "It's close, please, take my baby." "Dean." CLA felt a wave of panic wash over her. She wanted to help, but she was terrified. She had never cared for anyone, not even for herself, really. How was she going to do this? But seeing the woman's pleading gaze, filled with terror for her child, something in her shifted. She couldn't let that baby suffer. She couldn't just turn around and run away. Without saying anything, CLA leaned toward the car seat. Her hands trembled as she unbuckled the straps holding the baby in place. She lifted him gently, feeling his small, warm, fragile body in her arms. The baby continued to cry, but as she wrapped him in the blanket she carried, his cries diminished slightly. She held him close to her chest, trying to convey some warmth through the cold night. What will CLA face next in her desperate race to save Dean? Don't miss the heart-pounding moment with African Legacy Tales. Everything would be okay. Life, although not always perfect, gradually filled with moments of happiness. CLA, who had spent so many years feeling invisible, found in her new family a purpose, a reason to keep moving forward. She became Dean's protector, his inseparable companion. They grew up sharing laughter, secrets, and adventures. Despite the age difference, their connection was unique. As the years passed, CLA proved to be more than just a sister. She became a fundamental figure in Dean's life, helping him face his own fears and challenges. She taught him what she had learned about life, that despite the pain, there was always a reason to keep fighting. And Dean, in his innocence, returned that kindness with unconditional love. Every day, as she spent time with her new family, CLA realized how fortunate she was. She had found not only a home but a place where she was loved for who she was, regardless of her past. She was no longer the girl who escaped from the orphanage. Now she was part of something bigger, part of a family that loved and accepted her unconditionally. Over the years, CLA blossomed in ways that no one, not even she, could have imagined. The girl who once escaped from an orphanage in the midst of darkness and cold transformed into a determined, strong young woman filled with purpose. Each day of her new life with Thomas, Judy, and Dean changed her. The love and unwavering support of her family helped her heal the wounds she carried in her heart. But it was the memory of that night, when she saved Dean, that planted the seed of her future. From a young age, CLA knew what she wanted to do with her life. She remembered vividly every moment in the hospital, the urgency with which the doctors worked to save Dean, the calm under pressure of Dr. Hunter and the medical team. Witnessing the impact of their work up close, feeling how Dean's life depended on each of their decisions, ignited a passion in her that would never fade. She decided that one day she would be like them. She didn't just want to live grateful for having saved a life, she wanted to dedicate her own to saving as many as possible. As she grew, CLA proved to be a brilliant and